Hello everybody, this video is about, as you can see, debugging with DevTools. It's an intro to debugging with DevTools and using them to help you deal with problems in your JavaScript and CSS and HTML, hopefully. So this environment is a user-based environment, so you don't see error messages. It can be a bit challenging. And this is true of any interactive code. You can't use the good old print statement or display on the UI the way you would with a console type of app. You impact the output if you do that. And also you're not necessarily capturing everything that's going on because it's also event driven. So as with embedded coding, so for example Android and systems programming, there is the print adjacent logging. So we can still do prints if we want to and play around with them, but we can also look in the logs and we can write to the logs. So it's a bit more of a sophisticated log setup with Android and systems programming. They use the Unix-based logging system, but we've seen before in some of my examples the console log. So it's part of the Windows object or the window object in which our DOM resides, and what it does is it takes a message and it puts it somewhere for us. But where is it? Well, we can use DevTools to have a look at it, the DevTools console to be more precise. So all browsers have some kind of DevTools, and I'm going to show this example will be Firefox, and I'm going to be using Firefox throughout the class just to be consistent. They're all pretty similar, but the difference is kind of getting into a different type of car. So if you drive and you've driven different types of cars, you may have noticed that, say for example, putting on the high beams. So in my sister's Volkswagen, it's on the left on a dial on the console. In my car, it's on the steering column. In some other cars, it's different places. So they all do the same thing, but figuring out how to do it is not exactly the same in every one. So if we're consistent, it's hopefully going to be a little easier for us. I have the simplified events example. So this is a slightly different example. So I have two buttons here. If I click on this one, nothing happens. This one, nothing happens. So as you can see, we're kind of at a loss here. So what we need to do is we need to look at the DevTools. So let's hit F12. And we can see here right away, we see that we have uncaught syntax error. So I'm missing a semicolon after the function. So there's more information here if I want it. And it tells me where to find it. Events line 47. Oops, it says 47 and it says that it was opened at line 40, column 22. So that's a pretty explicit piece of information. It's kind of nice. So what I'm going to do now is go and have a look. So here it said in my start, where did it say? Events.js, opened in line 40, closed at line 47. So I'm obviously missing a semicolon, so I can stick that in here. Now that's kind of a minor thing, but if you have a little more intricate, let's format this. If you have a little more intricate errors, and you can't figure them out, this is a very useful thing to have. So now if I save it, it should reload it in my Go Live server. Oops, it didn't reload it. Let's see what happens. Oh, it did reload it. Sorry. It says I've got a get statement. So this all worked fine. I'm looking at the console here, and this all worked fine, apparently. So let's now try to change color. Ah, that worked. And notice on the console, it's giving a whole bunch more information. We have an uncaught reference. We have something's not defined. Shoot. I'm missing whatever this is. So I can have a look at it, and it says here, change background color, references in these two. So let's have a look at where that issue is. So as we can see here, I'm calling change div color, but I'm never using it. So it gave me an error there, but I didn't see that. I didn't see that in my UI. So in this case, I don't want to change the div color anymore. I don't think I have a div anymore, so I'm going to just delete it. So I'll delete it. Save it, and it should now reload the page. I might have to reload it because I'm using the debugger, but oh yeah, no, it reloaded it. So let's have a look. So we have the, again, we're back in the console, and we have all of this information, what happened. So let's change color. Change color. It says we have an uncaught reference error. Muppet is not defined in change background color, startup, and my event listener. So let's go back. Hopefully I'd be better at this, but I'm obviously not. So it says Muppet is not defined. Why is that? Because I've defined my constant here and not in the global scope. So I need to have this defined elsewhere. So I can put it in the global scope, which I don't normally recommend. I just want to fix this quickly. So let's now save this and see what happens. So my get worked fine, everything's good, change color. There we go. Ah, now it says Muppet is null. So what happened there? So I have a query selector by this ID. Well, the problem here is that if I use query selector, I give it an ID. Let's see what I've got in my HTML. Here, I'm going to just close these. We don't really need them. I don't need this. I have an ID of name, so what's the problem? Well, the problem with this one is, this might take me a little while to find it, but I've made this error before. If I use get element by ID, I just put in the element name. But with query selector, since I can do it by class, by ID, by element type, I need to put in a # if I am using an ID. So let's save this. That's done. Go and have a look. So it reloaded. My get is good. Change color. There we go. Let's see what happened. I don't have any errors. So I change color. I say hello. You rang, Fozzie. Change color. Change color. So it seems to be working okay, but the problem is my code, the purpose of my code was to make this Fozzie swap between Kermit and Fozzie every time I hit a button. So I want to swap it, and that's not working. So I have to look and see what the problem for that is. So if I look in here, let's say I can't really see it. I don't know where the problem is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log some information. So I'm going to put in here so I'm saying what it is. So this is where I think the problem is. So I'm going to, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that, Z. I'm going to copy it in each of my, after I do the swap Muppet. Maybe before and after swap Muppet. Let's try that. So what I'm doing here is every time I click the change background button, so when I do my setup, I should see it in the log, see what the value is to make sure it's Fozzie. I've just set it here, so I just want to make sure it's okay. And here I'm going to see what happens when I do my swap Muppet. So let's give it a shot. So it should have reloaded it. So now I'm going to change color, change color, change color. Where are my log messages? Did I save it? No, I didn't. Okay, so now I've saved it, and I get my, I have my log messages. So this is the first one that happens on startup, and on startup is executed, startup or setup or whatever you want to call it, is executed when my DOM content loaded event is fired. So now let's change the color. So now I've got Fozzie, Fozzie. Aha! So because I know now it didn't change. What happened? It didn't change. So let's check the code again. So let's take a closer look at swap Muppet and see what's going on, because it didn't change. We know that for sure. So if document Muppet, so we have the triple equal here, and what the triple equal is in JavaScript is it means that the value and the type of the variable are the same. So we can because it's not a strongly typed language, we can do some tricky things, like I can assign a 5 to a variable, let's say the number 5, and then compare it to the string 5. And if I use the double equal, it'll be the same. But if I use the triple equal, it won't be the same. So we'll get into that in a little more depth. But so what's happening here? So if document Muppet is assigned Fozzie, is the same as Fozzie, then I change it to Fozzie. That's a logic error, or a dumb mistake on my part. It's not really dumb. It was just I wasn't really looking, I guess. So let's now do this. Now I'm going to save it. I'm going to leave the logs in because I still don't know if it's working, so I'm going to leave it in. And I'm going to go back here. So it reloaded. Let's try changing the color. There we have Fozzie. Kermit! Yay! Same thing with this. You rang Fozzie. Okay. And it changed to Kermit. So it's going to change with every time I click on the button. And notice here I have it's Fozzie before, Kermit after. So now that it's working, I can take my log statements out and I know it's working fine. So that's using console.log.